I want you to think about something. If you were given just a 24-hour notice that you were going to be on lockdown in your home for the next 30 days, are you ready? Well, a lot of you have been asking me that very question this week, and so I want to answer it in this episode. Don't go away. In the next few minutes, we're going to take a lot of notes, so grab a pen and paper, and I'll see you right around the corner. There is so much to cover here in the next few minutes. I'm going to go rather quickly, but I want you to make sure you take notes so you don't miss anything. And also don't mind if I look down a few times, because I have a lot of notes I've taken that I don't want to miss out on sharing with you today. So if you were given 24 hours to prepare for 30 days of lockdown, or whatever you want to call it, some places might call it house arrest. That sounds really negative to me. It might be like a 30-day vacation if you're prepared. So, however you want to look at this, let's talk about the steps to prepare in just 24 hours for that full month of being in your home. Here's how I would start. I would wake up early and I would get on my knees. I would have the scriptures before me and I would ask God for wisdom, for clarity, for protection, for provision. I would ask Him to help me know exactly what is the priority for my situation, wherever I find myself, and for whatever family I'm trying to provide for around me. Start there, and it's going to put your whole mindset in a different place, and it's going to be of utmost importance before you do anything else. You've got to remember that. Keep in a peaceful spirit with all of your trust. Put in somebody who knows a whole lot more than you do. Okay, now that we've covered number one, the very next thing I would do is take an inventory of what your needs are and what your assets are. And I'm going to cover very quickly 10 different categories that you need to consider. So get ready to write these down. And number three of what you're going to do kind of goes along with number two. And why I'm saying that is, number two is take that inventory of your needs and your assets. But number three is going to be write out a plan. So as you're taking inventory, if you see that there's a place that you're lacking, go ahead and have a tablet already to the side where you can take notes of, hey, today I've got to get this taken care of. Okay? So 2 and 3 go together there. Now let's go through the list of 10 different aspects that are of utmost importance. And I don't know that these are exactly in the order they need to be, but they are all of importance. So here we go. First of all, you need to make sure you have a shelter over your head. For most of us, that's a given, and we can be so very thankful that we have a house to live in. If you don't, you probably need to take this 24 hours to find a suitable shelter for yourself. When I say suitable shelter, I mean something that's going to protect you from the elements, going to give you a place to rest your head at night and sleep peacefully in some sort of protective place that is not exposed to the elements or to other people that are possibly able to harm you. It needs to be a clean place, especially right now with this COVID scare that's going on. You need to make sure that you have not only a roof over your head, but a clean space. So if your house is tremendously dirty, that might be the top priority, is just clean it within an inch of its life in the next 24 hours, if everything else is good to go. It needs to be sufficient for the season that you're in. So if you're in winter, like we happen to be here in the U.S. right now as we film this, I've got to make sure I've got some warmth. I've got to have insulation around me, doors that close, windows that come down and are fully functioning without breaks in them. That might sound silly for you to consider, but for some of you listening, this is very important and it needs to be one of your first priorities. Find a shelter. Okay, also, I'm going to encourage you, whether you have a good home or not, that you also get tarps, a couple of them, just in case you were in your home for the next 30 days and there was some sort of a natural disaster where your roof was compromised or you had to leave the house and still needed some form of shelter. You need at least a good waterproof tarp. Keep that in mind, and I would put that on the list of, if you can afford it, make sure you have a tarp on hand. Water. You need to have water. Keep in mind that every person in your home, including your pets, needs to have sufficient water for the entire 30 days. Even if you have running water right now and say, oh, that's not an issue for us. No, I don't want you to think it that way. I want you to consider that if the water was shut off, you would need your own water. So don't only just have a means of capturing water, like a tarp that could capture water outside or a barrel underneath your gutter, but I want you as much as possible to store 1 gallon of water for every person and pet per day for the next 30 days. You could use milk jugs. This is one of those aloe vera jugs that I love, that I use in my own home, and I save every one of them. They kind of have a square bottom, so they store very nicely and compactly together. So if I just stored water this way in 30 of these for myself, that would be great. Some of you don't have that much space or don't have gallon jugs. I'm going to say, if you just happen to have some canning jars that are around, if you have any kind of vessels that are not being used already for something else, go ahead and fill them up with water. This is the day to do it, and it won't hurt anything. If you have a BERKEY water filter, I congratulate you. I don't think I would go out and buy one in the last 24 hours before a lockdown, but I do encourage you to use it if you have that, or a distiller. That's an excellent option. Also, for some of us, you of course remember the water that's in your hot water heater, but some of us don't have access to any of the storage space for these, but we do have a bob. You've seen those, that large inflatable with water. It goes in your bathtub and it holds up to 100 gallons of water. That might be an option if that's your only place in the house to store water. So we've covered shelter, we've covered water, and now I want us to talk just a little bit more about the next category, which is heat. In that category of heat, I'm also including power and any kind of fire or warmth for your family. So that kind of is a lot of different things right there. But as you know, the fire happens to be a heat source as well as a source of light. So you need to be thinking about that already. If I was in an apartment in an urban area and I had no other way of storing any kind of provision for heating my apartment if the electricity happened to go out in the next 30 days, I would encourage you to go ahead and get these. I think these are full body. In fact, let me pull this out real quick. This is it's by Hot Hands brand, but these are super warmers, and they are they're extra large, so that you could warm up your whole body a little bit if you put that under your jacket or your coat or in your bed. And these stay warm for up to 18 hours. Is that not incredible? So if nothing else, go out and buy 30 of these. And if each one of them gives you 18 hours of heat, that's going to keep your body above the temperature it needs to be for staying warm if you happen to be in a cold environment. That's a very minimal start to your preps for heat. Of course, you know that if you have watched our episodes before, you know that my very first recommendation to anyone who's starting to be a prepared person for anything in the future is to get a good oil lamp. And you can buy one of these in the next 24 hours easily. You can get it at almost any department store. Many grocery stores carry them. What you need to make sure is that it has a good wick, has a good working mechanism so you can move that wick up and down, and it has a good base that's going to be able to hold the oil that it needs. Get the kind that it calls for, and some of them are different, but if it calls for kerosene, only get kerosene. And try to get the kind that says it's usable indoors and that it's odorless. That's going to help you a lot. I still recommend having some sort of ventilation available. Don't just lock yourself in a room with that. But that's going to give you a source of light and heat. In this same category, we have all of the power needs for the house. And you've probably seen these before. These come with all of your cell phones and charging devices. This is just something that plugs into the wall and has a USB port on the back. you've seen those, and those are excellent to have, and I hope we all have plenty of those. But we also need to be prepared just in case the power were to give out during that 30 days for any length of time. So this would be the baby, the least I would recommend, but let's go up from there. This handy little charging device is the same as this. It plugs right in, but it has 2 USB ports on the back or front, whichever way you look at it, and it stores plenty of power in there so that you can charge your phone up to 4 times once you've got this charged. That's pretty handy. So it works just like this one did, but in the event that you needed to unplug it, it can be stored in your purse or your everyday carry bag, and that would charge your phone 4 different times if it was needed. Staying in the same vein of things, I want you to look at this little portable power cell. This is from 4 Patriots, and no, they are not a sponsor, and I have no affiliation with them, but this was a Christmas gift that I'm thankful for, and it is almost just like this in how it works. I can plug it into the wall and store the energy up in it so that I can charge multiple devices a couple of times. It also has a wonderful little flashlight here on the back of it that if you hold down the button, it'll give you at least some bit of light for quite a while, which I think is very handy. But it can charge also from just the sunlight, which is very fantastic. Now, I did read about it. It takes a lot longer to charge with sunlight than it does just by plugging it into the wall. However, if the power went out, I'd sure be thankful for that, and I would sure be sitting this in the sun so that I had a power cell that could help me out. Before I go further to the bigger mom and daddies that I'm going to mention here, of course, have plenty of batteries on hand, and remember, this is a good time to realize how dependent you are on any kind of batteries, and do your very best to come up with solutions that do not require battery power. Have as many manually operated things as you can. You can get hand crank radios that are also solar powered. Those are extremely helpful. There are a lot of different devices that can be powered without the use of batteries. Okay, enough of that. This is my favorite thing right now. This was another Christmas gift that I cannot even tell you how excited I am about. This. This is a professional power station from CAT. What this does is it can charge itself up like these littler ones, but a much bigger, beefier charge. It can charge up just by plugging into the wall with any regular extension cord, which I think is so cool because it doesn't have to have some special cord that attaches to it at all times. If you have any regular extension cord, you can charge this up. Also, if you wanted to, I was told that you can attach it to some solar panels and charge it up that way as well. But once you've got it charged, it has got, and I'm going to say this all wrong probably, but I know it has at least 1,000 amps. I hope I'm saying that, 250 watts of power. It can charge your car, so it has the car chargers right here on the back. It has an air compressor in it with 2 different sizes of nozzle, one for your tires in your car, one for smaller things like bike tires or basketballs or something like that. Also on the front, it has 4 USB ports and a regular plug-in. So I could do all kinds of things. It even has a light. So if I had to put this right next to my car to pump up the tire, if I had a flat tire or something like that, it has this wonderful light that is going to shine right at the correct level that I need it to. And it has lots of other fancy things to it that I think is just fantastic. And it's small enough with a handle, almost anybody can carry. This is the next size up. Different brand, also a gift from a friend, and I am so very grateful that I feel so blessed to even have this. Actually, they're letting me borrow it this year. I will give it back to them, but I'm very thankful to have it in my home in case it's ever needed. This does run on gas. However, it's much quieter than those big ones that you see out in the garage that are going to make quite a bit of racket and attract the attention of the neighbors. It does need to have ventilation, so I would not recommend that you use this inside the house. But if you used it outside and kind of shielded it just a bit, it would be wonderful for being quiet enough that you could get power to whatever you needed on a temporary situation in your house. And I'll show you the end of it here. It does take just a little bit more knowing how to do it and upkeep, but it is a fantastic unit that even a woman of strength, the amount that I have, can lift it with this handle and get it where she needs to go, or heave it up into the back of your truck or car or something like that to take it somewhere. It has up to 2,000 amps. Did I say that right? 2,000 watts of power. I think that's the correct way to say it. Get whatever you need for your family. I want you to be prepared, and power and heat is a very important thing to consider. Along with that, I'm going to say, if you have a fireplace, make sure you have the wood or the source of whatever is needed to burn in that fireplace. If it runs on gas, if it runs on wood, have a big enough pile that you could potentially heat your home and cook every meal in that if it came down to it for 30 whole days. Food is really important. You have to have enough for 30 days. And I have so many of us that have stored just a bit of food in a back pantry and thought, well, yeah, if we have to dig into the rice and beans, we'll do that. I want to tell you, if you do that, if you have rice and beans that you've stored for the past 10 or 12 or even 20 years that you haven't gotten into, first of all, you're going to have a family that's pretty disgruntled, that has some real gastrointestinal issues, because that is not the normal diet that they are used to. And at the same time, I want to encourage you, you can't just go and buy 30 days worth of food that is not good for you, that is just comfort food. If you're going to live 30 days at home, you need to think as balanced as possible for what do we usually eat in our home, how much of it do we go through on a daily or weekly basis, and how much can we store up of superfoods, fresh superfoods that are going to boost our immune system, that are going to help us power through the days and not just get sluggish and lazy and want to lay on the couch for 30 days straight. So think carefully when you go out and shop today, and I want you to get to the grocery store at some point in this next 24 hours. If you have rice and beans stored in the pantry, that's great. Those are a good backup plan, but that's not going to be what you need to be eating for 30 days. So on my notes here, let me just give you a couple really quick. I'm going to say get milk. Milk that is not just fresh, get a gallon or two of that, but get some that is canned, get some that is in boxes, and get some powdered milk. So you have multiple options, and for those picky eaters around you, everybody's going to have what they need milk-wise. Also, eggs. I'm going to encourage you to have double the amount that you need on hand, and they're probably going to last just fine all 30 days without needing any more fresh eggs. Those do great once you've got them in the refrigerator. But if in doubt, you can watch our episode on how to pickle eggs, or how to preserve eggs, how to put some of them in the dehydrator or the freezer or whatever you need to do. We've got some of those episodes made already and some that are coming up. So just stay tuned, and if we haven't covered it already, you'll see it in future episodes. Flour and oil. Those are things that everyone needs to have on hand, whether you usually use them or not. Those are the things that make comfort foods. And of course, oil is used for everything from baking, from frying pans. Everything that you make usually has to have some bit of oil to keep it from sticking to the pan or whatnot, okay? So make sure you have plenty of oil on hand. And flour. Flour makes biscuits. Flour thickens gravies. Flour makes things rich in taste, and you need to have some of that, even if you're not a big baker of bread on your own. If you are a coffee or tea drinker, you need to make sure you have plenty of that on hand. Don't forget meats. If you are not sure what kind of meats to get, and you're considering that there may be a power outage in your area, get canned meats. Those are wonderful, and there are all kinds from fish and beef and chicken. Get canned meats. Those are going to last you great. You need a good source of protein besides eggs for your stock up on this. Of course, beans and grains are going to be excellent, and those are comfort foods that our bodies need, and they're going to be very healthy for you in the days ahead. Get oats. Steel cut oats are what I would recommend, because they have so much more nutrition than the 5-minute quick oats that you can get easily at the store. They cost just a little bit more, they take a little longer to cook, but they have much higher nutrition. And quinoa is another one that's underestimated. It's great when you're tired of eating rice or other beans. Quinoa has this wonderful flavor that gives a richness. Also barley. Think outside the box of what you're used to, but what is a superfood or extremely healthy, and it's going to help you out here. Think of bone broth, because that's going to be healthy. If anyone in your family gets sick, you're going to need bone broth. Also nuts. Nuts are super healthy. And really, if you were just to Google right now the list of anything that is classified as a superfood, and then just go down that list, and anything that your family likes, go ahead and get some of it. I've got Granny Smith apples and spaghetti squash. I have gotten okra and walnuts and cranberries and pomegranates. It's so much fun to go shopping and get as much as you can that's going to be exceptionally nutritious for you to work with in the days ahead. If you're in doubt, remember that the richer the color of the vegetable generally means it's going to be higher in nutrition content. So just like I could have gotten white potatoes, but I did go ahead and get the dark purple potatoes, and those are always fun. You can get multicolored carrots. And of course, I would say this, any kind of underground vegetable is going to last very well, like carrots and beets and turnips and the potatoes, sweet potatoes. All of those are excellent at being a comfort food for your family, as well as being entirely nutritious. Okay, let me move on more quickly here. Sanitation is something that absolutely must be thought of. And when I say sanitation, I'm not just talking about Clorox wipes, though I do want you to store up on Clorox wipes. Also, make sure you know how much toilet paper you go through. We've done an episode on this before, and usually on the month of January on my calendar, that's when I take a real careful inventory of how much I'm using of each different thing, so that I kind of know how to budget throughout the year. And toilet paper is one of those things you really need to make sure you've budgeted for your whole family. At least have one nice big fat roll of toilet paper per family member per week. That's going to be a good rule of thumb to follow, and if in doubt, double it. And I would say don't forget about the paper towels. Those are excellent for cleaning up messes. They can be used for Kleenexes or toilet paper in a pinch, not on a normal basis, but just think of all of the things that you need to keep your house sanitary. Have alcohol and hydrogen peroxide on hand. Make sure you've got a good first aid kit that's fully functioning, that doesn't have several of the things robbed out of it because it's several years old. Make sure it's really good, well stocked. Also in this category would be anything that cleanses your body. So shampoo and conditioner and soaps. Think of toothpaste and deodorant. Think of shaving cream and razors. Also, don't forget about your medication. If you have any prescriptions that might need filled, go ahead and get that done today, as well as keep in mind anything like contacts or contact solutions that you might need. Those kind of things are really important for you to have for the next 30 days ahead. That all fits in that sanitary situation category. And of course, you've heard me mention before, I do think every home should have a luggable loo, which is one of those 5-gallon buckets that can have a little toilet seat put on top and bags put in it that can be disposed of quickly if by chance the sanitary system for your city was shut down or something like that. Okay, let's go on. Security. This is a really important category that you need to be considering. And when I say security, I'm talking not just about firearms, though if you are a family who has those, you need to know how to use them. You need to know where they are. You need to have them with whatever maintenance is needed already done. And if you need to get a new maintenance kit for that, go ahead and get it today. Whatever system you have, I want you to just evaluate it real quick here this morning and decide what needs to be done to shore up any loose ends in that category. Also, in the event that you aren't one of those people who uses that, or in addition to it, and you need some sort of a perimeter marking, one of the easiest ways for you to kind of have the security system that's a poor man's version of things would be to have a whole lot of fishing line on hand. I'm going to let you do the research, but with some fishing line and some mouse traps, you can really make a good little security system for yourself without any electricity needed or any real fancy college degree to figure out how to do that. So do what works for you. Also, some folks really like those solar-powered motion detector lights. And I would encourage you, if you don't know about those, today might be the day to see if you can get some of those and have them on hand. Also, you might, just in case you need to think about this, if there was any kind of a natural disaster during this season of wherever you live and find yourself, you might want something that you could put over the windows, like boards. If you need to get a few pieces of plywood or particle board that would be useful in your area if there was a natural disaster in the next 30 days, this is the time to go ahead and make sure you have something to cover those windows in that event. Transportation. I'm just going to cover this really quick because if you're supposed to stay home, you probably are supposed to stay home and not go anywhere. However, I want you to make sure today, in this last 24 hours, you go out and get your gas tank in every single vehicle completely topped off with gas. Secondly, I want you to make sure that you've gotten a couple of gas cans and filled them with gas, and gotten also just that little additive that you can put in that gas that's going to stabilize it for the long haul, okay? Keep that in mind. This is Stable fuel stabilizer. It treats up to 20 gallons. So I've got a couple of 5-gallon tanks of gas out back, and this will treat several of those and keep that gas good and usable for at least 30 days and much longer, hopefully. Okay, so get what you need to in that. And then I do encourage you, make sure your car still has a get home bag in it. It has jumper cables. It has whatever you need to make that a safe and ready vehicle if by chance you did have to get away. Think of water and food and fire and shelter as just absolutes to always have available in your vehicle, as well as any tools that you might need if you did have to change a tire, get some Fix-A-Flat, get whatever it is that you need to in your vehicle so that if it did have to be just jumped into and driven off, it's already equipped without you having to bring anything out to it. All right, communication. Now, I'm just going to refer to you really quick on this one and say, watch our episode on covert communication. That's going to help expound on this a lot better than I can right now. But my main point I want to make to you is have a plan. If you have a loved one, if you have people that you need to communicate with, have a certain plan that you all agree to, that you know how to communicate. I want to also mention, be certain of how you're going to receive communication. Because right now in the next 30 days, if you were put into a situation where you were to stay in your home, how do you know where to get the correct information? That's a very difficult thing to answer, but I want you to already be thinking of it and have a plan. If you need to go out and buy some sort of a shortwave radio today, do it. It's going to be worth it. If you need to decide as a family which news channel you're going to be all tuning into, or which website to get your news headlines, this is the time to come up with how are we going to communicate with each other and how are we going to receive communication so we all know kind of what's going on in the world outside of our home. The next two categories are the last two, and they're fun. One is what I call comfort and joy. This is important because in a stressful situation, your family is going to have tensions that are higher than normal, anxiety that's a little bit above the average. You're going to feel displaced a little bit and still very much at home. It's just an awkward feeling. Don't be surprised if you feel alone and angry and confused all at the same time. That's why this becomes a very important category. Let me give you a couple of ideas under the comfort and joy scenario here. First of all, I want you to have your clothing ready. In this 24 hours, go ahead. Are you missing anything? Have you grown out of everything and you need to go out and get a new pair of jeans that you're going to wear? Go ahead and throw it on the list of things to do. Shouldn't be the top priority. You can probably get by with what you have. But if you are in a situation where you need clothing, go ahead, and today would be the day to get just a couple of pieces that are going to be comfortable and the right size and what you need, as well as having good quality bedding. You should have something that's going to get you by already, but just in case you don't have a good warm blanket that's going to comfort you through this time, make sure you've got that blanket. Also, make sure you have personal things for each person in your family. I love this little solar charger, but what I love best is the idea of having each person in my family have one. My mother was the one who gave this to me for Christmas, and as far as I know, she gave one to all of her children and all of her grandchildren. I think that's just a great way to do it. So you're not fighting over chargers, you're not getting aggravated with each other. As best as you're able to afford it, get something where each person is responsible for something that's going to take care of themselves, and they aren't overlapping with the other family members if at all possible. So just keep that in mind. Next, I want to encourage you, if there are apps or games that your children play, go ahead and get those downloaded. If there are, like one of my favorites is a Bible app, and I want to be able to look at it offline if the internet or the Wi-Fi went down. And so having that available offline is fantastic. I heard this from a missionary one time, and I really remember her and how beautiful she was. But when I asked her how she was able to make it when her husband took her off to a very, very austere environment, very difficult place in the world, she said she took one thing that helped her feel feminine. She had her favorite perfume, and every time she got discouraged and just felt hopeless and whatnot, she would go dab a little bit of that on and buck up and chin up and go forward again. If there is something that each person in your family needs, for you men, it's probably not perfume. It's probably something else. You probably want your favorite, I don't know, but get that. For the children, it might be a favorite stuffed animal. It might be a favorite bedtime storybook. Personally, comfort and joy to me is going to be something like a good pillow and something made out of caramel or chocolate or perhaps maple. But I digress. For your pets, if you have pets, they may need something different, but keep them in mind when you're getting something to comfort each family member. Also get a favorite toy or a good pet pillow for each of them. But make sure that each person has one article that's comforting to them, that makes them feel human and not completely alone or in any way discouraged, but gives them a little spark of, this is me, this is hopeful, this is joy, and I'll keep on going. If at all possible, if you can pull out $1,000 or more, some of you, some of us less, but aim for around that amount of dollar bills that you have in small, medium, and large bills. Say 10 $10 bills, 10 $20 bills, and the rest in 50s and 100s. You might be very thankful later. Last on this list of 10 categories I want to mention is productivity. If you were to just sit still and try and just muddle around the house for 30 days, you're going to really just get cabin fever like nobody's business. But if you can already have a plan in this 24 hours before that 30 days starts to be productive, I want you to go ahead and write them out. Come up with the plan. What do we want to accomplish? And do I have the tools and the things that I need to make that happen? Like, let me give you a couple of examples. Make a list of projects that you haven't gotten accomplished, that you've been procrastinating on. Make sure you've got the supplies and the tools to complete them. If there's homework that needs brought home from the kids' school, make sure you've got all the homework already on the property in hand. Make sure you make a list of assigned chores for each person. This sounds very minor. It might be something you already do, but I would ramp it up in these 30 days. Give assignments to each person so they feel like they have a mission to accomplish that day. If it's just taking out the trash, if it is feeding the dog, if it is to journal what the weather was like and then what each person in the family did that day, let that be somebody's chore. Make it fun, but give assignments so there is a purposefulness about this and not just a willy-nilly, let's sit down and wait for this to get over. Have some sort of a progression that pulls you forward. And then I would encourage you, learn something. If you need to learn about cooking because you've never learned cooking before, this is the perfect time. Or gardening, or foraging, what you can eat from your own yard. This is the perfect time to learn it. Already in this 24 hours, I want you to acquire what you need to accomplish something productive in the next 30 days. Okay. I do want to encourage you in this way and say, as best as you can, if there is a list that you have created over listening to these 10 categories of what you need to purchase, I want you to go out and try and find those today, but I want to steer you just a little bit away from Amazon. Not because I hate Amazon. I'm sure there are some wonderful people there, but I want you to try and think of mom and pop stores or small chains that are around you, chain grocery stores or hardware stores that might have what you need. Go there first. Partly because they're probably not sold out as quickly as the big department stores are going to be, and partly because you are supporting them and this might be the last support they get for the next 30 days. Amazon probably doesn't need your business right now, and they're going to be inundated with business over the next month, and you don't need to necessarily be one of those ones that sends all of your money there when it could be on some local level. Also, consider that you may not have access to some of the appliances you're used to. Like those of you who are addicted to the Instapot, you won't be able to do that if by chance the electricity ran out. I want you to think of that and at least prepare mentally. And if there is something you need to get as a replacement, this is the day to do it. Like, if you only have the type of coated frying pan in your house that can be used only on a certain kind of stove and only with plastic utensils, this might be the time to go ahead and splurge and get a cast iron skillet that will work over any kind of stove and over any type of open flame fire. Because if you find yourself in a situation where you're cooking in that fireplace or even out over a grill or something, you need the tools that is going to be indestructible and usable in any environment. An Instapot does not qualify for that, nor does a microwave. Those are going to be useless in the event of a power outage, but I will hope with you that that does not happen in the next 30 days. Okay, you've come through your morning prayers. You've come through your taking inventory of needs and assets. You've written out your plan. The last two things are acquire what you need to from that list. Whatever is missing, go ahead and today is the day to get it. Do what you need to do from that list of preparation that you just made. And then fifthly and lastly, I'm going to encourage you to rest and trust the Lord. It's time to go to bed, and tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. And so, end your day with prayer. End your day with peace. Lay your head on the pillow, trusting that if you have not remembered everything, if you didn't have enough money to get everything, that you have a God who is looking after you, and He will not let you fall if you trust in Him completely with your life and your protection and your provision. You can trust Him. And so I'm encouraging you in the next 30 days, make it your mission to wake up first thing trusting, fall asleep each evening with peace in your heart, trusting Him also. And all of the rest of the things are going to fall in line. Let me say this, of all the days of the year, if you had 24 hours before you had a 30-day lockdown, wouldn't this be the perfect time to make sure you've gone out and found somebody who needs you to be their blessing and bless them today? I hope you will do that. I hope you'll share this video with someone it might help. And I hope it helped you today. If it did, will you let us know in the comments below, and like and subscribe, because that helps us keep going. Thank you for being with us, and we're going to see you next time. God bless you. Bye-bye. Before you go, I would love to share with you just a quick word of scripture. This happens to come out of the Old Testament in the Holy Bible, back in that book of Lamentations, and it's in chapter 3, verses 31 through 33. And it says this, "For the Lord will not cast off forever, but though he cause grief, he will have compassion, according to the abundance of his steadfast love, for he does not willingly afflict or grieve the children of men." Now go spread the word.